After 10 rounds of action, it all comes down to this. 2 drivers, 6 points the margin, Meets versus Munoz. Who comes out on top as we finish off our season of the PRL GTE Sportscar Series here at Virginia International Raceway? You'll see it all live right here on the Global SimRacing Channel. My name is Ryan Jones. Alongside me is Oshin Pahaka, and behind the scenes is your usual commentator, Joe Peak, using cameras provided by the legendary Doug Beard. As always, why don't we take a closer look at this fantastic racetrack with our GSRC track guide.
Welcome to Virginia International Raceway. This track near the southern border of its namesake has had the rare blessing of being resurrected from the dead. With 2 decades of use in its modern incarnation and still drawing regular visits from IMSA and Trans Am, it's safe to say that VIR is back and thriving. The owners didn't skimp on refurbishing the place either. An impressive 7 versions are available to run on iRacing, with viewing areas that include posh villas near South Bend that can be rented by fans. The track's long and complex layout has earned it some colorful corner names too. The horseshoe kicks things off right away with a never-ending double apexer that tends to suck the greedy out into its runoff. Later on, fast cars lacking downforce are sent through the terrifying climbing S's and spit out of the steep drop of South Bend. Of course, there's perhaps the most famous turn of Oak Tree, which has sadly lost its eponymous flora in real life, but is retained here in the virtual world. Let's not forget one of the scariest obstacles at the end of the lap, the roller coaster. The incredible speed drivers carry up into this blind braking zone is what causes it to require such immense bravery in order to get the most out of a lap. As you'd expect, the high number of corners makes passing rather difficult. Add in the fact that many of them are dangerously swift, and track position can wind up being a major factor in races. With the picturesque backdrop of the Appalachians around them, fans are not left wanting when they come to watch drivers face off at this historic track. It's no wonder the circuit has found success in its second chance at life.
A look there at this roller coaster of a racetrack. What more can you tell us about it, Ozzy?
Well, Virginia International Raceway, one of the most obscure tracks if you're not from the United States, one of the most familiar if you are. A wonderful place for racing, Ryan, and 5.26 kilometers, 3.2 miles long. Very fast course, having some very unique corners as well. Some of my favorite, including the South Bend, of course, the Oak Tree, which no longer has an oak in real life, but the iRacing, it keeps the legacy alive, and then into the long back straight off the roller coaster as well. A challenging track for sure. Very narrow at places, as I said, some high-speed corners, very demanding, and something that really takes a driver back all the way to 1957 when it was originally opened. Hasn't changed much since, even though it was reopened in 2000, Ryan, and I think it should provide some pretty good racing today.
It will, and as you know, we don't do this without the help from our amazing sponsors. Thank you to SimSA, Simulation Motorsports. Affinity provides many consulting services, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. By working hard with organizations, companies, manufacturers, teams, and drivers together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. They're also bridging virtual and real motorsports for providing a network between these two, involving sim racers, real drivers, teams, managers, engineers, and of course, motorsport fans alike. You can find out more about how you can get involved at simsa.net. And today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by ButtKicker. ButtKicker provides products add an incredible immersion and realism to any game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Check them out at ButtKicker.com. So the championship, let's take a look at it. The drivers is about as tight can get. 6 points, the gap from Rodrigo Meets to Paulo Munoz, the 2 championship protagonists. Abner Acosta there in 3rd, and Michael Ross and Horatio Carquin out of the equation for now in 4th and 5th, and the gap between them suggests that fight might be settled as well. Teams Championship is slightly further spread, isn't it, Ozzy?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it used to be close, but then sadly Acosta had to cancel the season with 2 races to go, and that meant Level Motorsports doesn't have any points from the last couple of rounds, so they've lost ground to Punto Sierra Racing Blue, which are now the team champions ahead of Level Motorsports, as I said. 10 RSR eSport by G Performance rounding out your top 3 with L1 eSports, Ford, and Punto CL Racing Red in your top 5.
Let's take a look at how we are going to get around this race track today with our race details. It's our 10th round of the season. But as always, take us through it.
Yeah, so the script, so to speak, for the race is same as usual. We got a 60-minute race with an open setup. 4 cars to choose from in the GTE category: the Porsche 911 RSR, the Ferrari 488, the Ford GT, and the BMW Mate or M8. You got an open setup, as said. You got an incident cap as well. Stop and go at 13 incidents and disqualification at 20 incidents. If you are wondering what this incident means, then make sure to ask us on the chat. And 1 bonus point for the fastest lap, pole, and 3 incidents or less for this event. So summa summarum, 1 hour open setups, and let's go racing, Ryan.
Are you looking to take advantage of GSRC's 1 million plus global monthly impressions? Well, from official series sponsorships to commercial placements, we have advertising options customizable to suit your company's needs. Follow the link in the description to learn more about that. Let's take a look at how qualifying looks with just under 10 minutes left to run in the session. And what do you know? Rodrigo Meets is fastest right now by 0.3 of a second, or just under, to Lucas in second. Paulo Munoz is sitting in third, 0.4 away from the championship leader, who told you last week, Ozzy, that he loves this racetrack.
He does. Rodrigo absolutely does. I mean, he won out last week as well, and here this time out, he said VIR, one of his favorite circuits. Absolute treat to drive on, and it's in stark comparison to Paulo Munoz, who he's fighting with for the championship. And Paulo is like, Paulo was like, well, you know, he doesn't quite know this circuit. He's gonna have to practice real hard for this week, and it shows out there on the times, 0.4 between the two. So really interesting to see how much Paulo has been able to gather during this 1 week. And of course, between them, you got Lucas Pasicalupo, who's been very fast all throughout the season. A little bit unlucky, a little bit inconsistent at times, but sitting in second place. So could be a little bit of let's say a mix, a little bit of a random effect between these 2 drivers.
Horatio Calquin, this is not a competitive lap time. That looks like it might have been a warm-up lap, or he's made a mistake. On this particular lap, Ken Rodriguez in his Porsche, looking very good as it winds down the hill and on to that main straight. You've got to get that power down as early as possible while avoiding the understeer. You can pick up very quickly through that last corner. It's not, but that for him, it's 1.7 seconds slower than his previous best, which currently has him up there on the leaderboard. Lucas Pasigalupo, what does he do? No improvement.
No improvement so far. 1:42.4 is his fastest time. Rodrigo Mies still on the provisional pole, as you can see on the left side of his screen, 1:42.1. No surprises there. Let's see if Mies can improve on this time around. Coming to the line, and no lap time there, so he's gonna have to ride on this time around 0.3 slower than in practice for Rodrigo Mies, so he still got actually most of these drivers are slower than in practice, apart from Pasigalupo, who's improved by 1/10, and Christian Eisler, who's improved by 0.2. And Ryan, why don't we actually take a look at the weather today? See how's it faring out in Virginia, in the southern end of Virginia.
It's pretty cool. The track temp, 26 degrees Celsius, not much wind to speak of, and a little bit of humidity in the air. So potentially they had a bit more cloud cover over practice, which allowed them to go quicker. It's the only thing I could think of that would make everyone slower here in qualifying, but it is mostly cloudy, and there are plenty of clouds still floating around in the sky above these drivers. Christian Eiser's hoping a big dark cloud is going to descend overhead through this final corner to give him a little bit of extra grip as he uses all the racetrack out of that final corner, and he comes to the line. What's the lap time for him? It's a 42.4, and that puts him third, and it knocks Munoz down to fourth.
Great time for the Iceman, really finding his form on all the correct places. Still a tenth off his practice time, but this is getting better, and he is only less than a couple of hundreds of Lupo as well. So we could really see Eisler on the front row here, and that's a great help for Rodrigo Mies, because these men are teammates, Eisler and Mies. Even though they're driving different cars, they are teammates on the Punto CL Racing Blue team, and if Eisler can stay ahead of Munoz, Ryan, that can potentially mean a little bit of team tactics.
Munoz not in a good spot right now, that's for sure. Oh, by the way, Rodrigo Mies has gone even faster, a 42.016. Now he has 4 tenths of a hand in hand over the rest of the field. So, well, he said he liked this racetrack, and he's certainly proving it today. And Munoz looks like he's going to have his hands full if he wants to eclipse that 6-point buffer, which will become 7 if Rodrigo snatches pole as well. Rodriguez sitting in 11th place at the moment. His best is only a 1:45.9, 3 and a bit seconds off of Meat, so he can get around here pretty nicely. He should be able to put down another decent effort. It's a fast run up into a very blind left, which leads into the right. You've got to get on the brakes. You can't run wide, because if you do, well, you find the grass, and it's a long road back onto the tarmac from there. As Lupo lets another driver go by. That was Anderson Schmidt.
Yeah, so that's the one thing about VIR, is that sometimes the walls are surprisingly close, and sometimes they are nowhere to be seen. So if you run out, for example, you take the corner before the oak tree, turn number 10, the south bend. That's notorious for, if you run wide there, you can actually end up on the back straight. Like, that's how much runoff there is. It's basically a grassy field all over there. You could play a lot of football games, whatever kind of football you prefer. I know, Ryan, you guys down under prefer a very different sort of football to ours, but, you know, you could play a lot of games of football in those grassy fields, and they certainly provide a lot of opportunities for making mistakes without having to pay so much for them, but still, you'd rather keep it on the grippy stuff.
Yeah, it's called AFL, and it's better than NFL. So, because Lupo didn't find an improvement on that lap. Teddy Lowendijk sitting in 7th, the Ohio man. What can he do? His best at the moment is a 43.2. He needs to find half a second to get one spot higher up, but if he finds it, then suddenly he finds himself very close to 5th, to 4th, and to 3rd and 2nd as well. It's pretty tight, 2nd through to 6th at the moment. He didn't find an improvement on that lap. He'll be trying to wind up for one now. Anderson Schmidt sitting in 10th. He too needs to find a big improvement to get any higher on the grid. Only 11 cars today. Not quite sure what happened there.
Yeah, so the field is winding down as the season comes to an end, and it's a bit of the VIR effect as well. I said earlier on, it's not a very well-known racetrack outside of the United States, and a lot of these drivers are not from the United States. In fact, we only have 4 drivers who are from the US. Those are Teddy Lowendijk, Michael Ross, we got Ken Rodriguez, and J.R. Williams as well from the United States. Rest are from Latin America or from Brazil. So a lot of these drivers having to cope with something new, and maybe a lot of them are, as this is the final round of the season, maybe they are a little bit weary already, thinking, okay, they can't improve their possibilities on a new circuit, and maybe thinking about going golfing early. But still, as we say in Finland, as the numbers decrease, the party improves.
Well, let's see if that rings true here in the Precision Racing League GTE Sportscar Series. 55 seconds remain in our final qualifying session of the season. Can Munoz find a late last gasp improvement to get up onto the front row? No, he can't. He improves, but not by enough. He stays in 4th. The gap between 2nd and 4th is 0.02 of a second.
Yeah, that's close, and the gap between Isra and Munoz 4/1000 of a second. So these guys very close at the starting order, but sadly for Munoz, he won't be able to improve. Isra won't be improving either. Bacigalupo is not on the track right now. He is returning there. I think he has actually time for one more. He's running the final corner with 10 seconds to go, and this could be getting really tight, but I think he should be able to start a new one with the cloud cover in here. Let's see. 3, 2, 1. Oh, he just made it.
Just made it. Rodrigo Meets is on a lap as well. Does he need to improve? Probably not. Is he going to try to improve? I'd say so. Through the final corner. Winding up that throttle pedal. Oh, that's out of shape, and that will probably curtail any improvement he might have found on this lap. As he crosses the line, he's 0.3 off his previous best. Bacigalupo also coming out of the final corner in a moment. No, he's on the complete other side of the racetrack, if you will. He's coming into the middle sector, riding on board with him now. Up the roller coaster to the right, to the left, to the right, and then back to the left. All while winding up the hill at a cool 200-something kilometers an hour.
Yeah, so the one thing, he makes a mistake coming into the oak tree. Let's see if he can cut it nicely, well enough. The one nice thing about the roller coaster is that you saw those houses maybe on the left side of the track. You can see it in some of the shots in race. You can actually rent those. You can actually, rent a weekend over there and rent a house and come here with your car and just go driving, basically. They host a lot of club events, a lot of track day events as well at VIR, and it's a great experience, I'm sure. Many layouts as well here. This is the full course layout. You also got the Grand West layout as well as the Grand East, and a couple of infield ones as well. But let's see if Bacigalupo can improve here on the full course layout, hoping not to take the wrong one.
That was a bit of the grass out of the final corner as well, similar to mistake to what Meets did. Wow, he's so close to the lap time he's already done, but it's not enough to knock himself any closer to that pole position, and that looks like everyone has completed their qualifying session. And with that, we take a look at our starting grid for our final race of the season, our championship showdown. Rodrigo Meets has snatched pole position. He's put his best foot forward. Lucas Bacigalupo will start from 2nd. Christian Eisler from 3rd. Paulo Munoz will have to go from 4th in his quest to run down Meets. Michael Ross from 5th. Horatio Calquin starting in 6th position. Row 4 consists of Ted Lowendyke and Pablo Valenzuela Uribe from 8th. Jay Williams, Anderson Schmidt, 9th and 10th. Ken Rodriguez rounds out our 11-car field for this one. The field's very tight if you take Meets out of the equation.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you look from the 2nd place down, Bacigalupo 142.437, and then you look, for example, at 4th place, Paulo Munoz 142.457. So that's just 200 of a second separating these three drivers, and then down from them as well, Michael and Ross 0.6, Calguin 0.7, and further down you got Lowendyke, you got Uribe, you got J.R. Williams as well, Schmid and Rodriguez a little bit further away from them, but it should be a tight race. I mean, I wouldn't say it's not going to be a tight race, even if we have only 11 drivers. Some of them might be, some people might be like, okay, well, that's not going to be a good race. There's too few people. I disagree, Ryan, and I think we should always remember that the amount of drivers you need to have at minimum for a good race is 2.
You're exactly right. Now, we've got a full pace lap to do at this 500 kilometer racetrack, which is, well, it's a long way. So, what about strategy then for this race? Gonna need to make a pit stop. If you're Munoz, what are you gonna try to do? to stick to the back of Meat and then maybe try and jump him if you can't pass him.
Well, first of all, you gotta get past Iser and Basicalupo, or hope that either of the two can stick to Mies. And I don't think he's gonna receive too much help from Christian Eisler, who is teammate, of course, with Rodrigo Mies and Basicalupo as well in the same Punto organization. So you got a tall order if you're Paulo Munoz, certainly going in as an underdog. But speaking of strats, well, you want to pit as late as possible. That's the GTE meta, so to speak. You don't want to run any extra laps with too much fuel. You don't want to carry any extra weight by coming to pit early. So instead, you want to pit as late as possible and get as little fuel as possible. So fuel saving potentially in the talks here as well. Not as much as last week at Le Mans, but still gonna have an effect. But as for your question, well, I don't think Munoz is gonna necessarily take a different strategy unless he sees Basicalupo and Eisler maybe fighting a little bit or maybe losing time. Then he might be early to get into some clear air.
It's that same effect that you see on the high downforce open wheel cars where the tires hold on, that as the weight comes off, when the fuel runs down, because fuel does weigh an absolute ton sometimes, you just continue to get faster and faster. And as long as you've got relative time available, that rings true in these GT cars as well. And we know that the tires hold on very nicely in GT, certainly E machinery. So that's why the overcut, it always seems to be so prevalent. You want to run the car as light as possible. And of course, when you pit early as well, not only are you pitting and not getting advantage of a light fuel tank, you have to put a lot more fuel back in as well. So you run heavy for a lot of the race. Don't expect anyone to take tyres just because of how long it takes to do so. And of course, don't really need to. In a 60-minute race, the tyres hang on pretty well in GT cars. As I said, for Rodrigo Meats, he just needs to keep his eyes fixed forward. He knows, based on practice and qualifying, he's got the pace advantage. He can't afford to make a mistake, because as soon as he does, he's going to put himself under a lot of pressure. And as soon as anyone gets by him, that's when opportunities arise for things to start going wrong.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's so easy to make a mistake here, run just a little bit wide, and there is nothing to save you if you run wide. I mean, there is grass, and grass doesn't grip as well as tarmac. We all know it. The early laps with the cold tires are going to be the most difficult, treacherous ones, especially with a lot of pressure to me. So let's see if he can handle this pressure. He's got some real-life racing experience from his native Chile, but let's see if he can actually put that experience to good use, and what can Munoz do and what can the guys behind him do to challenge him. It's going to be a real treat to watch, especially on the early laps, Ryan. Who's your bet?
I don't have a death wish, so I will not say and put the mocker on any of the drivers out there today. The iRacing.com Porsche pace car has been controlling the field for the last minute or so, but it's going to get out of the way and it's going to unleash our final race of the season. Rodrigo Meats in control of the field as protagonist in the fellow protagonist in the championship fight. Munoz, he'll start from 4th. Pace car's out of the way. One last time. Green flag in the air, racing for the PRL GTE Sportscar Series, and that is a jump to be envious of from Rodrigo Meats. He will lead them comfortably down into turn number 1.
Yeah, he got that Stefan Holm-like spring into his jump coming into the first corner, and I think he's leading quite comfortably. No changes for positions further behind the meter, and a clean start for everybody, I'm happy to report.
Basicalupo was just able to hold on to 2nd place. Isa was 2 hours inside through turn 1, but he couldn't quite get the drive off the corner to finish off that move. So he's sort of back into 3rd ahead of Munoz, who has not made any ground in the first couple of corners. You see there your full field running up the hill, using the curbs Gotta be careful because they can unsettle the car if you hit them wrong. And Munoz's car looks pretty nice, actually, up across the top of the hill there. Turned a lot nicer than Isler's in front of him. And again, there at the oak tree, that's a mistake from Isler. And this is going to give the incentive to Munoz to make this move. He's got the run down the back straight. Isler's car is going to come good in a moment, but going to be too little too late as Munoz clears him and immediately moves across to cover off that position. Isler's going to be careful because he's got another car trying to squeak up alongside, and that was Horatio Calquin. And they almost made contact, the two teammates.
Yeah, Calquin made up one position on the start past Michael Ross, of course, the two Ford GTE compatriots. And I was thinking for a moment Calquin might be putting on pressure to Munoz, but instead Isler ended up losing the position, and now the two teammates are behind Munoz. So that's a little bit of a victory to Munoz to get past Isler so early on. Now he's got to run down Bacigalupo and hope that Lucas can hold on to Mies at least for a bit here. First lap done already, almost 3 seconds between Mies and Munoz so far, but race still far from over, and this mid-pack, I tell you what, Ryan, it might be getting interesting. Look at how close Michael Ross is.
Yeah, he's putting a lot of pressure right now on Horatio Calquin after losing that spot on the first lap of the race. He's also got Lowendyke right up underneath his rear wing, so very tight from, say, 4th on back, pushing Isler just in front of Horatio Calquin as well. The top 3 have sort of detached themselves from this scrap. Watching from in amongst the rear assembly of Horatio Calquin's car, that's off the road and almost down the hill. Michael Ross somehow did not capitalize on that. Oh, he's off again, and that is going to be
Bacigalupo on the wall as well.
Yeah, 2 of them off. So a loss of grip down heading into the oak tree for both drivers, and well, you know from that shot right there, as soon as you touch the grass, due to the way the car is sliding, just to the left, it's almost impossible to keep it out of the fence. This is what happened to Bacigalupo. Turns it in, and it just didn't turn. Around goes the rear, and joined quickly by Calquin, who did find the fence, or the tyre bundle, and I think it might have done some damage to that car, because he's going rather slowly right now.
Yeah, I think he might be coming to the pit lane. So, a very similar incident for both of these drivers as Rodrigo Mies puts in the fastest lap. But, you know, the thing is that very different cause for those errors. You saw, first of all, Bacigalupo, he was just braking in a little bit too late, I think. The car wouldn't turn in on lap number 2, maybe trusting the tires a little bit too much as they start to come to life at that point of the race. And then, on the other hand, for Calquin, he already went wide on the previous corner and then kind of just couldn't stop it because he was in a hurry to come back to the racetrack, and he was on the brakes. He was trying to turn in, but no chance. So very similar end result, but 2 very different mistakes leading to that. And as a result of that, you now got the championship fighters in places 1 and 2. However, Munoz 3.2 seconds back now.
Munoz to be happy with how those first 2 laps have gone. He'll see the gap at 3.3, but he won't be too worried just yet. Very experienced and knows he's got to keep his head cool. The gap's 7 points now, thanks to the thanks to the bonus point that Meat's got for putting it on pole. We look down the back straight at your battle for what is P6. This is Uribe, just in behind Lowendyke. He's also got JR Williams right in behind him. All these guys have picked up spots off the start, thanks to the mishaps in front for Calquin and Bacigalupo, who are now running 11th and 10th respectively. They're at the back of the field.
Yeah, so those guys are gonna have a mountain to climb if they want to get it back near the front, and gonna be certainly interesting to watch, especially Bacigalupo, who doesn't have damage, but here we are running on board with Uribe, and he has Lowendyke in front of him. Now that's gonna be a difficult pass to make because we know the straight line speed of the Ferrari, as was demonstrated on lap number 1 by Paulo Munoz. The straight line speed of the Ferrari is so that it's going to be very difficult to make that pass in a Porsche. Uribe looks like he has a little bit more speed, but that more speed doesn't do you any good if you're stuck behind somebody.
Let's stay on board for the rest of this lap. Because we can get a feel for what the driver sees around this racetrack and what they're trying to look at. You can see that how some of your reference points might get taken away with that monstrous car in front. But what you're looking for as well is places where you're better than them. So, Lowendyke's pulled out through the rest of that first section from the middle sector. Uribe was very good through turn 1, so he'll bookmark that for later on. But Lowendyke definitely continuing with stretch, and his car looks pretty good. It's sticking to the racetrack, isn't it, Ozzy?
Yeah, Lowendyke's really coming to his form. We watched him last couple of seasons here. Was a little bit mistake prone earlier on, Ted Lowendyke was, but he's now coming to form where he can find his consistency and he can find his solid pace and starting to snatch solid results. Now, of course, with the dilapidated field, or rather the smaller field, a top 5 isn't that huge in terms of like where you want to finish, and it isn't maybe quite as valuable as it was early on, but hey, you still get the same points, and a great confidence booster as well for Lowendyke to hold these guys back. And in case of Uribe, well, Uribe no longer is actually faster either. Lowendyke's been able to put 2/10 of extra between himself and Uribe last time around. Of course, this is still a long event, but that's a little bit of a motivation booster, a confidence booster then for Lowendyke to maybe, you know, keep going, keep it in there, and maybe as well start hunting the guys in front of him if they start battling. Because if we turn our attention, Ryan, to the front of them, you'll see important developments in the gap between Eisler and Ross.
Yeah, Uribe's car is not getting the traction down out of the corners like Lowendyke. That's where a lot of the gap is between these guys, but you can see how Williams is closing up to them as well. So looking to make this a three-way fight. And as you mentioned, up in front, Michael Ross and Christian Eisler. These two, well, last time by, Ross was half a second quicker than Eisler, so he might have made a mistake, Christian. And we'll see whether that advantage continues on this lap for the driver of the 67.
So Eisler's really found the qualifying performance in his Porsche last couple of weeks. He was fast already in qualifying at Le Mans. Meanwhile, we report from outside of your screens, Lupo has retired from this race from 9th place. So he's had something happen to him. He is in fact in the pit lane and he is put it in the wall at 0-3 once again. So similar car incident for him, and Lupo decided to retire from the race after that one. No hope continuing. But yeah, Eisler's race pace has been lacking last couple of weeks. He's been good in qualifying, but he hasn't been that good in race conditions, whereas it used to be the other way around for the Iceman. So really interesting to see if he can find his form once again in the long haul.
Yep. Ruby closed in a little bit on Lowendyke last lap, so he's not giving up. The gap is, what, 0.2 of a second right now? He was 0.3 quicker on the last lap. It's another case of a watch pot never boils, because as soon as we looked away, he started picking up the pace once again. And look how much stronger he is on the brakes. Strong on the brakes, struggling for traction. Another great example there is Uribe just didn't get it turned, tried to get the traction down, ended up on the dirt. Lowendyke pulls out a safety net down this back straight, right up to defend into the next corner. And that's down to setup, it's down to driver. They're in different cars as well, which makes a big difference.
Yeah, it does. So the Porsche a little bit better on these slower corners. The Ferrari, on the other hand, faster in the, well, on a straight line. So the Porsche is a little bit improved corner performance, maybe a little bit better on the braking as well. Of course, the weight is more to the rear as well, so you got more mechanical grip as much as it matters. A lot of high-speed corners, however, here at VIR, so it doesn't have that big of an effect. but look out for it later on in the race as Uribe looks to the inside very late into turn number 1. I don't think that was a passing attempt, Ryan, as much as it was Uribe's way of saying, you know, Ted, I am here, and you better watch out.
A lot of history at this racetrack as well, VIR. You mentioned it earlier not being a track known so much by a lot of people outside of America, but I mean, his first ever race weekend, it opened in 1957. Harold Shelby won the first feature race at this racetrack. So you join some illustrious names if you get a win at this race facility. As now Horatio Calquin looking to pull the trigger and get by. That's a replay. He did get by Ken Rodriguez down at turn 1. That was a relatively easy move. Got a big pace advantage, of course. Calquin started from 6th, Rodriguez started from 11th. Bacigalupo, by the way, has pulled it back to pit lane and he's 2 laps down.
Yeah, a couple of laps ago mentioned it as well. Bacigalupo had spin into the wall at Oak Tree and he retired from the event. He's officially out as well, so he won't be continuing. So we're down to 10 drivers and still continuing to watch. Now actually watching Londick and Uribe and J.R. Williams as well, who's been quietly catching them up without really noticing, and he's been a little bit inconsistent this season, but when he is good, he is really good. Some of the experienced viewers may remember his performance at MotorSports, where he was truly avoiding every single incident, threw in a couple of nice saves there as well, and managed to haul himself a good result. But here at VIR, he is now a little bit further back from these guys, but by no means out of it. Especially as he has that Ferrari with the fast straight line speed. So now Ryan, Pablo's really have to be careful in that 6th place, because if he makes a mistake while trying to pass Ted Londick, or if he manages to screw up his exit by a hasty overtaking attempt, then JR is going to be right there to pick up the pieces, and then he's suddenly got 2 Ferraris to try and overtake.
He's showing the nose as they head up the roller coaster section. It's not a place you're going to make an overtake, but it's a place where you can force an error. Lowendyke, if you looked at his mirrors, would have been a little bit apprehensive about the prospect of Ruby throwing his car alongside him. Into Oak Tree. Ruby needs to set himself up for a wider entry so he can get the power down earlier. But even with that, he did it. The car snapped. And you could see, looking back from Lowendyke's car, that Ruby's Porsche almost spun out on itself as he tried to get the power down. So he's definitely got an issue right now and trying to get the traction, and that is going to be a big drama in trying to make an overtake stick.
Yeah, it is. And here we see a replay of Michael Ross getting past Christian Eisler. So that matte black for GTE once again, looking like a stealth fighter out there. Certainly got a speed of 1 as well, and not showing up in Eisler's radar at all as he throws it up to the inside and makes the move stick as well. Eisler seeing that one coming, not fighting it too much, not wanting to ruin anybody's race earlier on. Oh, and Lowendyke's around. Lowendyke's around and avoiding contact is Uribe. And Ted Lowendyke making a mistake in the final part of the racetrack. Wow.
And sometimes that's all you need to do is just apply the pressure and the mistake will come from the car in front. Lowendyke, rear end, not giving up what he wanted from it. It just didn't stick the traction as he tried to get the power down. Right here, as he turns it in, too much speed and the car spins out on him. Ruby did a good job to get his car wound up and turned it to the inside to avoid the front end of that Ferrari on board with him. And he'll have a pretty good view of this.
Yeah, you're gonna watch him here. Londick's gonna come a little bit too fast into the corner, spinning around, and that's a great job by Uribe because you're on the left side already at that corner. So it's kind of hard to turn the car more than you originally intended. So he's slowing down all nice and steady, and then the car in front just spinning around Ted Londick, and he had to make some sudden decisions. But great job by him to avoid the contact, as well as J.R. Williams for avoiding the situation. So now it's a bit of a different story. Now it's no longer Uribe attacking, rather it's Uribe trying to run away from J.R. Williams, who is in the fast Ferrari. Let's see if J.R. is able to find an overtaking opportunity in his next couple of laps, or indeed if he can even stay with Uribe now that there is Ted Lowendick out of the way. By the way, we can report that Ted is now down to 8th place. He's behind Anderson Schmid as well. So no damage for him, but a little bit of a chink to his ego.
And by the way, if you're wondering about our championship fight, Rodrigo Meeks has an 8-second lead over Paulo Munoz right now. So he's cruising. A fastest lap comparison, a 43.9 to a 44.6. And I think that might be the fastest lap of the race as well for Meeks. So he's currently staring down the barrel of a race win, pole, and fastest lap, which brings his points tally to, well, a lot more than than Munoz. 2 bonus points plus the 3 extra points he gets for finishing first rather than second. Looking at an 11-point gap now between our 2 championship leaders. Plus the extra point if they finish on less than 3 incidents. Munoz is pretty much, I'd say, probably hoping and praying right now that Meeks makes some sort of mistake or runs into an issue.
Yep, that's gonna be his chance pretty much here. Meeks needs to be pretty much outside of top 4, outside of top 5 for Munoz to still have a chance at the championship. However, we've seen that things can turn around easily. I mean, it's so easy to make a mistake at the lesmos around the oak tree, so to speak. And it's so easy to make a mistake anywhere else on the racetrack too. And if you're gonna make a mistake, you're gonna run into the wall. The car doesn't ask if you wanted to, drive it slowly. It doesn't ask if you're the championship leader. All it wants to ask you is that, well, are you sure that was a good decision, to make a mistake, or rather come too fast into a corner or something. So I think Meeks is cruising a little bit. He knows the situation. He knows that he's got all the right cards in his hand, and the river is turning out fine as well. So now he just needs to play this hand conservatively and safely, and not worry too much about pace. Just keep his concentration, which can sometimes, admittedly, be a little bit difficult when you are out there on a 8.5-second lead. You can sometimes start to lose concentration a little bit, and I think that's Meeks' biggest enemy right now.
Yeah, obviously he's probably not pushing as hard as he could, and that in itself can cause an issue. If you start to underdrive the car because you lose focus and you brake earlier than you're supposed to, that can throw off everything else. You can throw off your turning point. And suddenly, if you turn in too early, after braking too early, you might throw yourself off the racetrack. And it can start to compound into issues that eventually might result in a spin. Luckily, if you spin here, the fence is reasonably far away, unless you do it at the oak tree, in which case, you've got better pray, you've got no damage. Ooh. Well, there's a good example. This Meeks almost spun it coming out of the last corner.
Yeah, so...
Just grabbed the grass, and it almost spat him hard into the fence.
Yeah, you can see it here on board with him. So he's gonna do the same thing as in qualifying. We're gonna ride a couple of corners on board with him, no shame about that. Gonna turn left and then gonna turn right, and just a little bit too fast, too early on the throttle, a little bit too fast, gonna hit the grass here and almost spat out, and that almost ended up with him on the pit entry wall. And that would have been quite disastrous for Rodrigo Meeks. That's the one thing you don't want to hit here, really. One of those places where you don't want to hit the wall, because that's going to be terminal damage for sure. But that's an outdated Volkswagen Edward. So anyway, Rodrigo Meeks is still out there leading, but I think he's going to have to be a little bit more careful now if he still wants to take his championship tour around the malls of Chile and have that, have a bit of a meet and greet with the fans.
The good thing, this might sound weird, the good thing about making that mistake is it would have woken him up. And now, for a few minutes at least, he'll be on full alert again. Until he starts to cruise once more. And it's a bit of a cycle, really. You find yourself just zipping around the racetrack, not really thinking about what you're doing. The really good drivers, best of the best, they can stay tuned in and laser focused all race long, no matter how lonely they are on the racetrack. And they're the ones that always convert leads, poles into big leads, into a race win. See if Neeps can do that today. Further back, Lowendyke tried to run down Anderson Schmidt after falling behind, courtesy of that mistake. 2 tenths quicker last time by and 2 seconds back, so he should get there in about 10 laps time. At that rate of knots, I suspect he'll probably get there a little bit quicker.
Yeah. So, it's a bit of a calm before the storm, I would say, right now out there on the racetrack. A couple of fights brewing up, really, but mostly we've been watching at this point, and there's nothing wrong with that, because with these GTE cars, you got 1 hour race, you still got over half of it to go, in fact 2/3 of it to go, less than 40 minutes, and that means there's still time for things to happen. A lot of time for things to happen. I'm personally curious to see how far Lowendyke can climb, and also what can Cal Gwynn do after he maybe gets his car a little bit more repaired after the pit stop cycle. I think he's going to come early to the stops, because he's been a little bit slow, let's face it, after his mistake. He's been losing time to Lowendyke, which is what I was not expecting, but fair enough. But the one guy really who should be making moves is Ted Lowendyke, and I think he's going to be a little bit rattled by that mistake he made earlier, because he's certainly showing pace to be faster than both Anderson Schmidt and J.R. Williams at this point in the race. So going to be interesting to see how Teddy can cope with that. He is a couple of seconds back on Anderson, but he should be catching him up in not too long.
So what are you thinking at this point? If you're Paulo Munoz, how on earth do you catch Meeks? It's an impossible task right now, isn't it? It seems.
Yeah, so at this point you kind of get this deflated feeling where you start to realize, okay, I think Munoz didn't come into this with too many expectations either, because he knew how fast Mies is around here. So I'm not saying he's given up on the fight, but it's certainly a 4 track, so there's an advantage Mies. It's a track Mies likes and has a lot of experience on. That's again an advantage Mies. So I think Munoz came in as the underdog with the mentality of an underdog, to be the challenger. And he knew coming into this event that his only chance is that if Mies makes a mistake. So right now what he's doing here is trying to focus on not pushing it too hard, because on pure raw pace, he knows he can't catch Mies. Like on pure raw pace, he just doesn't have it. It's an impossibility at this point. What he needs to do instead is keep his head down, keep his nose on the grindstone, you know, watch his fuel gauge and just keep it in here, basically. Keep doing what you've been doing, keep Michael Ross behind you, put in some good lap times, and then just hope, because right now he can't control his own fate. His destiny is in the hands of Rodrigo Mies, and so he's just going to be cruising around for a little bit of time, but that's going to be a deflating feeling after being in a championship fight for all season long, coming to form really at midpoint through the season, and then at the end having it all snatched away from you. And I think he's going to be looking back at Le Mans last week and thinking that if he just played his hand a little bit differently, this could have been a different situation heading into the final event. And you're going to be, you have a lot of time. That's the bad thing about it. You have a lot of time to think about the mistakes you've made earlier on and how it could be different. But you also got to have the experience and the mental capability to push that all out of the way and just focus on the task at hand.
But there's 35 minutes left in this race still. So it's not over. So that checkered flag flies. And it's why we always harp on about getting every last point you can, even as early as the first half of the championship, because it all comes down to the final race. You can't leave it to the final race to make your move, because you never know what may happen. Could be a scenario like today where the guy leading loves the track. Who's that? That's Rodriguez, and he is now 10 seconds behind Calquin, ahead of him, after bowling off the track at the last corner. Is this a case of understeer in the Porsche? I would say so. No, it's a case of a locked up front, and he actually made the tyre bundle.
Whoa.
A little bit surprising, actually. That's a pretty uncommon mistake for that corner.
It is, so it could be a lapse of concentration, I think is what it is. And as a result of that, you know, he's gonna have to be sitting here and thinking, I really didn't want to make that Kenny Rodriguez, especially as this is the kind of race. Normally, you wouldn't pick up on those kind of mistakes because you'd have a battle going somewhere else on the racetrack. And you'd maybe miss that, but unfortunately for Kenny Rodriguez, he had that one replayed and shown to the board, but I'm sure Ken Rodriguez will be able to leave down that at some point, last race of the season and running in 10th place. Cruising around, maybe, you know, not having too much pace out here, but Ken is the kind of driver who is usually very consistent and usually able to bring his car over the line mistake-free, so that's a rare one for him, as we are running on board with Ted Lowendick. Slick Ted Lowendick, and he is now starting to really catch up to Anderson Schmid. 1/10 faster last time around, gonna get the draft from here, and gonna potentially start scouting for those overtaking opportunities.
I mentioned earlier how Carroll Shelby won on the first weekend for these cars. It's a pretty decent history. You mentioned as well, the track was closed from 1974 to 2000, but in its first iteration, that 20 or so years, I mean, some of the drivers that raced here, Roger Penske, Richard Petty, Wendell Scott, Skip Barber, not the series, Skip Barber himself raced here as well. Of course, Carroll Shelby. So a lot of history in this place. And more modern, these GT cars at this track is a combination that it's used to. Of course, the IMSA WeatherTech Sportscar Championship hosts a GT-only race at this track. Has done ever since 2014. Plus, a lot of manufacturers love using this place as a testing ground as well, because it's got a bit of everything. It's got the high-speed corners, it's got fast corners, it's got slow corners as well, and undulation change, so really work out that suspension.
Yeah, it's the kind of place that you ideally want as your testing ground, proving ground. Especially if you use one of the other layouts. You can use the Grand Prix layout. You can also use the Grand East or the Grand West layout, which is going to incorporate some of those tight, twisty corners on the inside of the racetrack, which kind of remind me of the flow at Baba. And it's a whole different racetrack once you get to the infield. It's really technical. A lot of elevation changes still. A lot of very tricky blind corners. And then you still have the opportunity to use some of the long straights as well. So that's really one of those things which you are looking for in a proving ground. So you're absolutely right. Very rich history as well. Once you look back the books, this has been used as part of IMSA GT Championship, as you said, American Le Mans Series as well from 1999 to 2013. That means they've raced things like HPD, the LMP2 HPD here, which is gotta be absolutely insane gunning that thing up the roller coaster. You got Grand Am Series, and you also have things like Arkham Menard Series have raced there. So big stock cars have raced at Virginia International Raceway, and I tell you what, I would have wanted to see that live. I think those big V8s making lovely noise here on the plains of Virginia, that would have been one lovely sight.
It was, and as Carroll Shelby once said, a lap at VIR is like 100 at Watkins Glen. It might undersell Watkins Glen a little bit, but you can certainly see the premise in that quote. It has got a lot to it, this racetrack. And right now, looks like we might have a battle on our hands, because Lowendyke has run down Schmidt and he wants on by. This is the battle for P7 with 30 minutes left on the clock. We shouldn't be too far away from seeing some pit stops either. Oh, there you go. Schmidt's in.
Yeah, I don't think he wanted anything to do with that battle. Now, that's an advantage Lowendyk, because he's still only 5 seconds back from J.R. Williams. So that's something Teddy's gonna have to use now, and he's a little bit faster than JR as well. Last time around, a couple of tenths been consistently catching him up, so might be a chance to, you know, be right there for the 6th place battle later on, as Anderson Schmid makes his pit stop and gets back out there on the racetrack. Gonna be interesting to see the lap time comparison. Of course, Ryan if you at home want to see the lap time comparison between any of these drivers, want to see how Rodrigo Mies or Paulo Munoz are doing, or just want to compare the lap times between Ted Lowendick and the man who just beat it, who was of course Anderson Schmid, then you can head over to GSRC.tv for our live timing and scoring.
I got curious and looked up some of the other people that have raced here. Carl Haas as well. So I think we've covered all corners of the globe with names that have raced here in the past. We've got Carl Haas. Haas now racing Formula 1 and in NASCAR. Carroll Shelby, of course, the man behind the iconic car, Global Sportscar in the year 1960s. We've got Roger Penske. He's got his hand in absolutely everything, hasn't he?
Yeah.
David Pearson off the race here. Richard Petty. You know, it's a good history. Good history. It is a very unique track, and you know, it was the first ever to be a motorsport resort. It's such a fantastic idea. I think more tracks should do it because it's got everything. Obviously, you mentioned that the hotel where you can situate yourself alongside the racetrack. You don't even need to leave the facility when you're done for the day, which is brilliant. But it's got dining facilities as well. Got a rifle range, kart track. Of course, there's a racetrack. That's, you know, key to a motorsport resort.
Yeah. Racing venue without the racetrack would be a little bit odd, but there you go. So
14.3 seconds. Meeks is showing less than no signs of slowing down. That's how the gap has gone out. 6 tenths, 5 tenths, 5 tenths, 7 tenths, 1.1 seconds. That paints a tale of potentially Munoz is starting to just feel it a bit now, and it's a dejected feeling, isn't it? You mentioned earlier. Still got just under half the race left to run, and you know at this point, well, there's almost nothing you can do. You're not banking on a mistake, as that's a move for Uribe. That was reasonably straightforward. You're not banking on a mistake because you know it's probably not going to come. You're just circulating, waiting for the checkered flag to fall and the confirmation of your runner-up finish to the championship. This is a replay of Uribe's move. Up at the top of the hill here, down the back straight.
Yeah, I think it's already done at that point. Uribe is going to be getting briefly passed by J.R. Williams, and then Uribe is just going to brake a little bit later. And there you go. And Williams on the pit lane as well.
So that's two cars that have made stops now in this race. Still waiting for any of our top 5. That's a 16.7 second stop in stationary time for him. So he gets that done pretty quickly and rolls back out onto the racetrack in 8th place ahead of Andrew Schmidt and Ken Rodriguez. Schmidt, of course, made that stop earlier on, trying to stay away from Teddy Lowendyke's charge back up the order, which has him in 6th at the moment. Up to starting 7th, getting up as high as 4th or 5th, falling to the back. He's had an up and down race so far.
Yeah, certainly having up and down race, but that's still better than an upside down race, which is what you have there on Australia, of course. Ha ha ha. So still got chances there, and as said, Lowendick's got a chance to catch up to Anderson Schmid, who he was fighting with earlier on. Well, trying to catch up earlier on, fighting with, and looking at the lap time comparison, Lowendick 146.3 last time around, rounded up. So that's not as good as he maybe would have wanted, but that's still a result for him that he can maybe, you know, kind of, you know, build up on. Let's see if he comes to the pit lane this time around. No, he does not. Keeps going for one more lap. Being able to stretch it a little bit more. And here you see the comparison as well, or saw the comparison between himself and Anderson Schmid, and 145.4 this time around. That's a little bit better as we see a Porsche on the pit lane, and Lowendick's
I just heard someone spun. Yeah, Lowendyke. I was alt-tabbed out, and I didn't know which car I was looking at, but I heard the telltale signs of a car slowly spinning, and guess it's another down in the roller coaster that's at Lowen Dykes race. Turn 1, same mistake as earlier, potentially.
Yeah, so not quite as drastic. He's gonna come into the brakes and he's just gonna lose it mid-corner, and it's gonna be a little bit slow spin. Look at him, trying to catch it, touching a little bit of grass and finally catching it. But that's just the kind of thing where you're gonna look at the delta bar, which is what the drivers use to determine the difference between their current lap time and their best lap time or their previous one, whichever you want to use. You can also use sector by sector basis, and you're gonna see a lot of red on that delta bar comparison to your last lap, and you're gonna be like, oh, come on, it's the first corner of the lap and you're already 2 or 3 seconds down, as I believe we do have our race leader and our championship favorite coming down to the pit lane, Rodrigo Mies.
As long as this doesn't end in disaster, he should be fine. He could probably take tyres and still end up in front of Munoz. 15.6 seconds. That is a good stop for him. And he comes out. Still on the lead of the race because Munoz is also on pit road, so too Michael Ross and Christian Eisler. Munoz gets going. Michael Ross will follow about 4 seconds back. Christian Eisler not too far away from them as well. So Meets is looking at every lap led in this one as well now.
Yeah, he's gonna be looking at a real Grand Chelem here. Pole position, fastest lap, led every lap of the race, and then, claiming the victory, of course. Ted Lowendick as well on the pit lane right now. This might get actually very interesting. We see Anderson Schmidt here on the main straight, and we see Anderson Schmidt getting by, I think. Yeah, he will, thanks to that mistake, thanks partially to that mistake by Ted Lowendick, so he's gonna have a mountain to climb once again. Now,
just looking at the leaderboard at the moment, trying to figure out something. Uribe has ended up behind Williams. So he's been jumped by him. So Williams pitted that lap earlier, remember? The same lap he got past, and
yeah,
back ahead. So the undercut works somehow. Not due to tyres, but just a faster run lap or a faster out lap. Clean air working well for him.
Yeah, it does. Might have been a mistake from Uribe as well. Of course, Uribe got a little bit of damage to the rear wing. Oh, and Williams don't hit the wall. You just tapped it. And that's a long time reversing back and coming back to the track as well. That's going to be Lowendick passing him by. Calwin's not going to make it, but that's... well, you were looking good there. 5th place for J.R. Williams, and then make a mistake like that, Ryan. That's going to suck so hard as a racing driver to do that.
Everything love tap. What did he do? Oh, too much speed into the corner. Rear end didn't stick. Boink. It was quickly into reverse there.
Yeah, he
Wasn't
was
stationary for very long. He knew exactly what was about to happen to him there, so that elevates everyone else up a spot. Lowendyke's back where he started. The biggest mover in this race is Uribe, up 3.
Oh
Schmidt
yeah,
up
Anderson.
4.
Yeah, Schmidt up 4 now that he's not past Williams, so he's had a good race from 10th place out there on the grid. However, he's gonna be now chased by Ted Lowendick and potentially J.R. Williams as well. So if he's gonna hold on to that one, he's gonna have to make the BMW even bigger than it already is. Now, interesting thing I want to talk about, history of this track. They used to race American Le Mans series here on its penultimate season, 2012. They had a 4-hour race, and on its final season as well, they had 2 hours and 45 minutes. It used to run under the names of American Le Mans Series VIR 240, as well as the Oak Tree Grand Prix. And since it's ALMS, that means they've raced things like the Audi R18, as well as the Delta Wing around here. So that's a lot of cars they have raced, and just, imagining that experience driving the HPD or the Audi or all those prototypes, Lolas, and things like that, around here. That's gonna be awesome. And that's gonna also add quite a list of drivers to the names who have participated here at Virginia International Raceway, if you're curious.
We are under 20 minutes to go.
Oh!
That's a big hit for Schmidt. He ended up in the tyre bundle there, and that will be sizable damage to the front end of that BMW M8 GTE.
Yeah, he's right into the hot pen, I think. That's in the final corner. And let's see, he just came out there to the left-hander, to a fast left-hander, and I think he lost it already there. Yeah, he lost it here, and nothing you can do. That's one of the toughest places you can lose a car in. And just nose first into the wall. Lapse of concentration, maybe trying too hard. All the pressure from behind getting to him, and that's a hard lick for Anderson Schmid, who was en route to his best finish this season. Just losing the back end there, and yeah, you're just a passenger at that point. Nothing you can do. Absolutely nothing.
17-second gap at the front, 23 to Ross, 32 to Isa, 45 to Uribe, who sits in 5th. That's how your top 5 sit. And Lowendyke, Williams, Schmidt, Calquin, your other 9. Rodriguez is a lap down, and Bacigalupo is retired. 20 laps off the top now.
So I'm looking at Munoz and Ross, not because they're close to each other on the racetrack necessarily, but because those guys have been lapping pretty much equal times all throughout this race. Now, just as I say that Ross has lost a second to Paulo Munoz, but the gap between those guys has stayed pretty consistent all throughout. So Michael Ross definitely being hamstrung by his bad qualifying here, because he's not only is he running in P number 3, but he's running well in P number 3. He's managed to gap Eisler, managed to keep everybody else behind him, as those guys have made mistakes, and he's had a real good race. And Ryan, we talked about that matte black for GD all throughout the race, with a historical number 67 as well on it. I want to have your opinion, since this is, I believe, the first race of the season that you're doing on this series. So, what do you think about that car? Do you like matte black race cars?
I like matte black in general. On some cars it looks good, on some cars it looks terrible. On this car it looks good. I like it.
Okay.
Although, I gotta say, if we were running at night time, I would absolutely hate it.
Yeah, that's why you got those lights on it. And meanwhile, I'm looking at Horacio Calguin, yeah, or we are looking at Calguin. I think everybody's looking at him right now since he's on the pictures. And he actually has something happen. He's now behind Anderson Schmid, and both of those guys have gone to the wall this race. Horacio Calguin on lap number 2, and Anderson Schmid just last time around. And as a result of that, they have a bit of a fight going on. For the 8th place, Calvin should be faster on pace, and whoa, catch me around. Yeah, that's a short battle, and that looked very bad, but honestly, Schmid had already lost the car on the entry, and I think Calvin just gave him a little bit of a tap there mid-corner, accidental, and well, that's gonna be it for that little bit of battle. Schmid gonna be potentially a little bit angry about that. Angry at himself for making a mistake. We're gonna see it here. That 4GD gonna get a lot bigger on the rear, and yeah, just a little bit of tap around. Already losing the back end. Calguin just helping to finish the job pretty much.
Is it safe to say at this point who your pick is in the race?
I think it's a little bit unfair. Honestly, at this point, you shouldn't say it anymore, because you're just gonna... We know Rodrigo Mies has had network issues earlier on, having some PC issues. You never know what kind of technical problems you might run into during the course of a race. Applies both for real life and online racing as well. So don't want to jinx this man now. I think this is regardless of the fact that we've lost... Abner Acosta from the championship fight. We lost Bruno Asture from the fight earlier on, who was strong there for most of the start of the season. But regardless of that, regardless of the circumstances, Rodrigo Mies has absolutely had championship potential written all over him since his debut 2 seasons ago, or last season rather. And Mies right now really coming to claim his potential, having a great race for himself. And it's so great to see it. It's so great to see it that finally, after some inconsistency, after some heartbreaks, it's all coming to form for him, because he's always been a class act. I can't remember any time when Rodrigo Mies has done something wrong on the racetrack. He's been absolute class, and Ryan, how difficult it is to keep it absolute class when you talk about GTE racing, because those things sometimes the rule book doesn't necessarily fly out of the window, but gets used as a blunt object for hitting somebody else with.
Yeah. It's been a very good race so far for our top two, and a very good season for our top two, but right now there's a clear winner at this stage with 13 minutes to go. I'm not saying winner of the race, I'm saying winner of the first 47 minutes of the race. Munoz has been sat about 5 or 6 seconds in front of Ross, or third place for the entire event as well, so he's not been pulling away, but he's been sitting pretty in front of those guys, so he's had no pressure from behind either. As Ross disappears from view and then comes back as we change camera angle.
Yeah, 12 minutes to go. He's gonna really have to. These guys are really just cruising home, I think, right now. Not too many battles going on at the racetrack. J.R. Williams losing a bit of time to Ted Lowendick as well for almost 4 seconds now. The gap between those couple of drivers. So we got a little bit of time to talk about GTE racing in general, and the fall is coming upon us. It's the final days of August. We are coming to September, Ryan. That means the virtual racing seasons, all those big series and a lot of series about to enter summer seasons and kick off into the fall. And usually fall time and winter time, well, I say springtime and summertime, of course, for you, because you're in the different hemisphere entirely. And that's always the interesting time for racing, I think. That's always when the big series are gonna kick off, and after the summer, people are maybe stretching their legs a bit and getting back to racing. So, what are the things you are looking forward to most? I mean, we're gonna see on iRacing, we're gonna get a new LMP2 car, finally. I would say we're gonna get a couple of new tracks as well. Not necessarily on the road side, but on the oval side. We're getting a bit of new content. So, what are the things you are looking forward to? Heading into this winter.
On iRacing?
Yeah.
Well, heading into this winter, I'm looking forward to summer. Your winter is my summer.
How hot does it get there?
Oh, I'm fine. I live next to the ocean pretty much. But you head inland, yeah, you're looking at pretty regular 40-degree heat, Celsius, that is.
Oh.
You get a little bit in America, depending on where you go. But I'll probably be dealing with 30-degree most days. Not too bad.
Not too bad, yeah.
The air conditioning's full.
Yeah, the thing is 23 degrees. Wow, English. 23 degrees Celsius out there on VIR. 32 degrees track temp. So the air is hotter than the track is. Air is hotter in Australia than the track is here at Virginia. A little bit of wind as well, nice humidity. In Finland, we don't really get air conditioning. That's the thing. We don't have it as a stock in our houses. A lot of people build it because we get a couple of hot days during the summer, but it's really rare to see it go past 30 degrees Celsius. So when it's 40 degrees outside your house, you can always take comfort of the fact that it's 40 degrees Celsius rather than minus 25, for example, which is something that happens here.
You know what? Last summer, December 17 or whatever, Australia as a whole had its hottest day on record. The national average was 40 degrees for 105 Fahrenheit. That was the national average. So it was a lot hotter than that in the middle of the country, I can tell you that much. So that was fun.
So I wonder about talking about the heat. I wonder how much heat Rodrigo Mies is finding right now inside that cockpit. He is 9 minutes from winning the championship, and he's still putting on some good lap times. But there's gotta be some pressure. What would you feel, Ryan? Like at this moment here, as Rodrigo Mies, you're 9 minutes from winning the championship. You know you got some friends watching. We had great support from the fans of Rodrigo Mies all throughout the season, going "Vamos, vamos, vamos, Mies" in the chat, you know, and really big fans of him all throughout the season. So it's gotta be an awesome feeling. Would you enjoy yourself, or would you try to close all those thoughts out and just focus on the task at hand? Of course, it depends from driver to driver, but in your case, like if you would be at a winning situation, I know it might be difficult to imagine yourself winning something. But Rodrigo Mies, what would be going through your head at this moment?
I'd have been thinking about that race win since the 5-minute mark of the race. That's why I don't win races. Think about it too early, and you throw it away. But I think right now, he could probably pretty comfortably start thinking about how he wants to celebrate the win. It was a 20-second advantage. But just trying to stay focused and not make a stupid error. He's got a lapped car coming up ahead of him, which is Anderson Schmidt, who's had a troublesome race, but he won't be of any issue to meet, so don't imagine. Pretty easy to get by lapped cars on this racetrack.
Yeah, so looking at this season, when you're looking back with 7.5 minutes to go of the final race, we are at the luxurious opportunity where we can have a bit of time, spare a bit of time looking back through the season. So earlier on, we had the level motorsport guys really dominating these races. So you had Bruno Asturi winning the opening round, you had Abner Acosta, his teammate, being really fast, and really the AAA team. Kind of like in the olden days, in the 1950s Formula 1, you had the Triple F team of Juan Manuel Fangio, and then of course a lot of other guys as well, a lot of fast guys in the history. I'm blanking out here, but you had Fangio and you had Faccioli as well in that team. And now Level Motorsports brought their AAA team for this season, and they looked really strong. You had Abner Acosta, who is already a champion in this league. You had Bruno Asturi coming to the form, being really fast. And then you had, of course, Turbo Acerbo, Alexis Acerbo, participating in the first couple of rounds of this season. And back then it really looked like Level Motorsports was going to be doing the same thing here that Mercedes was doing in Formula 1. But since then, they were being a little bit caught by a couple of other guys as well. Rodrigo Mies really only coming into form at round number 5 after DNFing in round number 4 and being just within the top 5 earlier on this season. Paulo Munoz winning round number 2, winning round number 6 as well. And really story of consistency for Mies as well as blistering pace. 4 races in, I don't think anybody would have had Rodrigo Mies as a shoe-in for the championship. But since then, his form just has been absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome for Mies. So that's how we've come here, really. And all throughout this season, it's not only been a story of drivers improving and a story of a lot of drivers, you know, developing. Teddy Lowendick, we've mentioned a lot of times, he's been developing all throughout the season. A mistake, sure, here in this race, but other than that, developing. Rafa Russo being the leading BMW for most of the races. You got a lot of Fords as well. And I think this sets a very interesting storyline for next season as well, because I think drivers like Munoz will be eager to get back. I'm hoping to see Abner Acosta back. I'm hoping to see improvement as well from Michael Ross, if we can see him climbing from the consistent podium challenge to maybe challenging for the victories. And then Rodrigo Mies potentially as a defending champion. So Ryan, they always say that, we need a championship. That's the easy part. Defending it is very difficult. I think that's going to be exactly the case when we look at the level of racing field, as well as how tough it might get during the fall when drivers, come back from the summer break.
Yeah, defending championships is one of the toughest things in motorsport. Aside from having Aussie in front of you, because it's like trying to pass a big wide dump truck. But I mean, in iRacing, it's slightly different because you generally have different racetracks every season, and in one season like this one, you might have a bunch of tracks that you really enjoy, like Meat seems to have had. Next season, you might hate them. So there's that to contend with. Of course, in real life, you've generally got the same tracks year on year. In iRacing, as I said, not quite the same. So defending the title is incredibly difficult, and it's all about uber consistency, which is something only the best of the best can have, and we'll see next season whether Meats is able to continue his stranglehold over the championship. He didn't win it. He's not going to win it by a lot. It's only going to be about 11 or 12 points in the end when he crosses the line, but sometimes all you need is a little bit. It doesn't matter whether you win by an inch or a mile. We all know that, don't we?
Yeah.
This battle on the screen is... Oh, who's that? That's Horatio Carquin. He's had a spin heading into Oak Tree.
For a moment, that was a hard skip to beat for Vigo and Mies fans, because that's a similarly colored 4GD being around and having trouble. And people, I think, were like, oh no, but I think this is going to be pretty much the same thing a couple of other people, including Calvin himself, have done. Oh, he lost it on the entry, and then just having the 2-foot magic save it, and that was a well-done thing for Calvin to actually save that car and get back going.
Minutes 30 seconds left. We'll have 2 laps to go when Meats crosses the line. 2 laps left to close the championship deal. And then he has to look forward. You think some of the best drivers in history, in real life, have won championships back-to-back. You're thinking you Jimmy Johnson in NASCAR. Thinking you're Lewis Hamilton in Formula 1. Maybe lesser known, but I think criminally underrated, Jimmy Whincup in the supercars here in Australia. All these guys, they're able to turn it up year on year. They arrive and they bring their A game. And for Meats, he'll have to bring it next season as well. Different tracks, going to make it a lot harder for him. But he'll certainly have the confidence moving forward. Certainly have the confidence moving forward from this race, because he has been absolutely dominant. No one has even looked close to challenging him. Not in practice, not in qualifying, not in the race.
Not at all, and he's been doing a great job then for really, for really bringing it to his form, bringing it to everybody else here, bringing it to these drivers, and I think that's awesome. I honestly think that's awesome to see, a driver really realizing his potential, realizing that he's got opportunities here, he's got championship opportunities, he's got his chance to write his name in the history books alongside of drivers like Gabner Acosta, like Jesse Stevens. And you talk about the level of racing going up in the future as well. I think that's what sim racing is doing in general. Like the level of sim racing, you look at the World Championship Series, you look at a couple of years ago, Greger Huttu was being able to win everything, then you had Martin Krönke as well, being really great in there. Now you got like 10 or 15 guys who are fighting for race wins, so it's in a bit of battle there, but yeah.
Rodrigo Meats pole position, every lap led, fastest lap. Just got about 4 kilometers left to navigate for himself out front to put his stamp on this season. He will be ecstatic with this. He said he was feeling a little bit confident, or if not, rather, he enjoyed the track last time out. Oh, he spun it!
Whoa!
He spun it on the final lap of the race! Oh, you would not believe it, but he's kept it off the fence. And such is the margin that he's still going to lead comfortably, but... Jeez, Meats, don't play with our hearts like that.
Don't! And your fans' hearts as well. So that was Mies around on the Oak Tree, thankfully able to get going. Imagine if he got stuck in the fence on the final lap.
Don't even go there.
No.
Rodrigo Meets. Yeah, you had to make it difficult for yourself, but in the end, it's still going to be as easy as it could have been. It's the race win. It's the championship win. Rodrigo Meets wins the PRL GTE Sportscar Series. Now we can spit it out. Now we can celebrate.
Yeah, now it's official pretty much. Paulo Munoz there putting in a good challenge, being a brave fighter. He brought his little bit of a dull sword here into this final round, but he fought like a champion should. However, didn't end up winning it, coming home at second place ahead of Michael Ross, who was flashing his headlights, coming home and rounding out your podium. So that's your trio here at VIR, and still on the final lap, we got Lowendick and we got Uribe still pretty close to each other, actually.
They are, but I don't think there'll be a change of position between them. Lowendyke, as long as he doesn't make a mistake, the final corner will fend him off to the line. Good job from him. As everything else will finish off 8 cars on the lead lap in the end. We will go to a break here on the Global SimRacing Channel. When we come back, your full results and post-race interviews here from Virginia International Raceway. Welcome back to the Global SimRacing Channel. We've wrapped up PRL GTE Sportscar Series season, and we have our champion, Rodrigo Meets. This is how they looked at the end of our final race. Meets won it by 19 seconds. It could have been more had he not completely spun himself out in the final lap of the race. Munoz finishing in second. What could have been for him? Michael Ross in third. Christian Eisler, Ted Lowendyke fourth and fifth ahead of Uribe in sixth. Jar Williams seventh. Ratio Calcum as the final car on the lead lap of Anderson Schmidt in ninth. Rodriguez 10th. And Lucas Batigalupo started second but finishes 11th. 31 laps down after an early retirement. So let's talk to our race winner and our champion. Congratulations, Rodrigo Meets. You got it done, and for 99% of that race, it looks like a very easy drive. You there, Rodrigo?
Yes, it was connecting. I didn't listen anything.
That's okay. For 99% of that race, it looks like a very good drive, an easy drive for you, and a good championship off the back of it.
Yeah, first of all, hello guys. Virginia always is not a easy drive. If you aren't fighting with another cars, you're fighting with the track. But I had a lot of work in the week with the driving. I almost not make change to the setup, so it was only me and the driving. I'm very happy that, or I'm very happy of the performance, uh, and for the championship, obviously.
What happened on the final lap? You spun it out. You gave us all quite the scare.
Yeah, uh, the final lap was very emotive for me. So I was for one part trying to focus on finish, and I had another part in my brain celebrating already, and I barely touched the grass there and went off. But luckily, it didn't happen anything worse, and only lost like 5 seconds. But yes, it was because I was trying to focus. So that was it.
Hey, congratulations. And who do you want to thank? Is there anything you want to say in your native tongue as well to all your fans watching?
Yeah, I will say it in English and in Spanish. I want to say thanks to my team, .cl, to my family. My mom was watching me, my father too. Y quiero darle las gracias también a los cabros del Discord que me estaban viendo, al Enzo, al Seba Sánchez, al Seba Vera, a todos en general. Y eso, pues, cabros, los banco mil. Yeah, that was it.
Thank you very much. Congratulations once again. Go and celebrate. Now you have crossed that line, and good job on a very good drive all season long.
Thank you.
Felicitaciones.
Gracias, gracias.
What was that, Aussie?
Congratulations in Spanish.
Oh, there you go. Hey, here's our runner-up for the race, and unfortunately as well for him for the championship, Paulo Munoz standing by with Oshin Fahaka.
Yes, hello, Polo. Well, it was a good fight, first of all. You had a good fight in you. We talked after Le Mans how it's going to be a difficult race at Virginia International Raceway, and sadly, it didn't quite bring you the championship, but second place, I think that was the best you could hope for here today.
Hey, everyone. I did a lot of practice with Rodrigo again this week. I watched some of his races, and he was clearly way faster than me. I knew that coming into this race. So I just kind of hoping to stay in second place, and if something happened to him, like that's been on the final lap, I wanted to stay close to in order to capitalize on his mistake. But that just didn't happen because I blew quali and I started fourth, and he just drove away immediately.
Yeah, that has to be disheartening. But looking back at the season as a whole, of course, Paulo, you were there early on, midpoint through the season. You were still fighting for the championship. What was the fundamental difference between yourself and Rodrigo Mies this season, and what can you do to be that one position better next season?
Well, I think he just made a lot less mistakes than I did. He was just better than me, and that's why he won. It wasn't because he was in a better car. That's not the reason, or any other excuse that can come to mind. He was just better than me, and that's why he won.
Okay, Paulo, that's a very honest answer from a racing driver. Before we let you give your greetings, will you be coming back next season? Will you be trying to take that crown from Rodrigo?
Well, I still haven't decided. I'm kind of like burned out of GTE driving, so I might give it a go at one of the other championships PRL offers. but I'm still trying to decide if I'm going to race or not.
Please do, Paulo. I enjoy watching you race so much.
I'll try. I'll consider it. But thank you, and congratulations to Rodrigo. He was fantastic all season, and I think even if Abner continued racing till the end, I think Rodrigo would have won anyways. So big congratulations to him.
Yeah, big congratulations to Rodrigo from us as well. And Paulo, if you have anybody to thank, either in English or Spanish, then feel free to do so. Ladies and gentlemen, your championship runner-up, second place here at Virginia, second place in the championship, Paulo Munoz.
Well, yeah, first of all, I want to thank my team Pure Sims, and also my old team RSR eSports. I did like half the season with each. So thanks to all of them and the sponsors. I also want to thank Rodrigo because we worked together the whole season. But mainly I want to thank Josh Thompson because he was fantastic this season for me. He spotted some races and he helped me with the setups and just getting the car as good as possible to beat Rodrigo and Admer in the races I did. So big thanks to him, and this second place wouldn't have been possible without him. And of course, you guys for the amazing job you guys do, as always, broadcasting this great series.
Thank you, Paulo. That really means a lot to us. And now go and enjoy your break, and we'll hopefully see you come back next season.
Thank you very much, guys.
And that was Paulo Munoz, second place in the championship, as well as our final interviewee. Well, we saw a great season end in a triumph for Rodrigo Mies and Ryan. Final race at Virginia wasn't quite the thriller we were hoping for, but still a great event. And I think that's a great note to end the championship on.
Yep. And with that, we will wrap up this broadcast for this season. Big thanks, as always, to Simulation, MotorSports, Affinity, and ButtKicker for their continued support of the broadcast and of the racing out there on the racetrack, and as well the companies that provide software and hardware for our broadcasts, which are listed here on your screen, as well as how to get a hold of Junior Lond, who provides all of our wonderful music. Thank you to the team with me today, Ozzy and Joe behind the scenes, who you're used to hearing on the mic in these broadcasts. If you want to find out more about us, you can do it on social media. Just search up Global SimRacing Channel on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, and make sure to hit subscribe to us on YouTube as well, so you don't miss a moment of the action. Plus, upcoming races is listed on your screen. Check them out, mark them down. For now, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.